Coming up on Guys Talking Sports, we talk about the fever corruption. We also talk about Adrian Peterson and the NFL. We also talk about the NBA playoffs. My guest host, Earl Ross, joins us next, and that's Guys Talking Sports. Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Guys Talking Sports. I'm Al Qualls, and I got guest host with me, Earl Ross. So we're just going to get started and talk about what's been going on in the world of sports today. So, Earl, man, how you doing, man? How's everything going?
Doing lovely. It's a nice Thursday evening. My glass of vino. So I'm all good.
Nothing like a good glass of wine to get things going. I see. So let's just go right into it. Let's talk about what's been going on. I've heard everything in regards to the whole FIFA corruption charges, but I really didn't get a sense of everything. So I really didn't get in detail of everything that went down. So I'm going to have you started off with that, and I'm just going to join in.
Well, I can't say everything because the information is still pretty fluid and it's still coming out as day by day goes along. But pretty much, Swiss authorities, along with the FBI, have been doing like a several-month sting on some of the top FIFA officials. In early Tuesday morning, more than a dozen plainclothes Swiss officials pretty much locked up most of the top FIFA officials based on corruption. And I'm not sure exactly how everything kind of came about, but allegedly there was a top FIFA official who was bragging about some money, had a couple of $1,000s on the table. One person saw that, and then from that particular point on, some person told somebody else, and then someone kind of flipped, and then apparently the FBI, along with the Swiss officials, got involved in this corruption case, which is not unusual because FIFA's been pretty corrupt over the years anyway. So, I mean, this is pretty much the first time that someone put much thought into going after the FIFA officials, per se. So, this all occurred, I want to say, this is like Tuesday morning when we all woke up. Next thing you know, Swiss officials had arrested most of these guys for the FIFA Cup, which is starting up. Well, really, for the women, is starting up next week. I mean, you had the World Cup that happened, about 7 months ago. But this is for the women's side, per se. And I think that a lot of monies that was being exchanged between hands was not going to the proper people, probably. And so some people kind of flipped and caught foul. But basically, I think England was the one who hadn't had a FIFA game since 1973. And basically, they were pretty much the country that pretty much started soccer and expanded across the whole, England empire. And then they haven't had a World Cup or FIFA game since to that time because all the other areas have pretty much been, getting the bids because allegedly, I want to say allegedly, money has been passed between, different peoples or bribes or kickbacks for getting the game to come to there. So, I mean, the situation is still pretty fluid. I mean, but once you got the FBI and this was stories of it's pretty big. I mean, you got the new Attorney General bringing charges down on the FIFA officials. So, I mean, it's pretty messy. Not that anyone is necessarily surprised, but I think people are pretty surprised that someone actually really went after these guys.
Now that I agree with. It really sounds like someone actually took the step that nobody didn't really think that they was going to do in regards to righting the ship, so to speak. It's very interesting to see that now that it's been brought to light how the country is going to react to it and how the rest of all the countries is going to react to it. Basically, it's just being someone that's actually doing something about it. So I commend the people responsible. Kind of the people that whoever bragged about it, they put themselves out there. So but I do commend the people for going after him and making what's right. I mean, making what is right that should have been right all along. I mean, it definitely was a lot of corruption going on, and everybody knew it. It's just that somebody actually took a stand to go after them. So.
Yeah, and I mean, you have the president of FIFA, Sepp Blatter, excuse me, pretty much saying that he didn't know anybody in corruption. admit, he's not going to admit to taking money. I mean, his people probably took the money, but he's not going to. He's not going to. The money is not going to go from whoever is giving money to him. It's probably going to go to somebody that he knows or somebody he's aware of that puts money to a company. It goes to a company. That goes to a company. And it gets back to him. So he's never going to touch the money, but he probably ends up with the money at the end of the day. And he's pretty much saying he's not stepping down as president. I mean, I don't think I'm not sure if he was involved in the sting, but his name is all over it. So I mean, eventually somebody's got to fall.
Sort of like fever, sort of like sort of like the Flake Gate. We call this Fever Gate or something like that. I mean, where somebody is basically, you're not, you're not gonna admit to yourself that you're doing wrong, but everything still points to you.
And this is big because outside of soccer is outside of the U.S. soccer is huge. I
Yes.
mean, huge. I mean, you have. I guess the terms I would think like as football is to the U.S. U.S. football, not football that people think about in European countries, which is
Mhm.
soccer, but U.S. football is like how that is to the Europeans. Like that's a multi-billion-dollar industry within the U.S. With outside of the U.S. borders, soccer is equivalent to what you want to call football. It's not the equivalent of talking about Roger Goodell and most of the owners just taking bribes about where the Super Bowls go. Not that I'm saying that happens, but that's the equivalent of what you're looking at right here, in my opinion.
No, I completely agree with you. It is kind of funny when you mentioned the whole Roger Goodell and the owners, cause because allegedly, there's just so much stuff that's going on behind the scenes that we don't know, and this with the fever thing just was brought into light. So, um, hopefully down the road we'll see more things that are wrong be made right. But this is a good step for FIFA. Hopefully they'll right the ship where soccer is won't be talked about as far as a corruption standpoint, but more about the game itself. So
But I think what's going to be interesting because you had the FIFA Cup in Brazil for the men's. You got the women's FIFA Cup coming up. I think like next week, I believe it is. I mean, you have the Olympics coming in Brazil next year in 2016, I think it is, if I'm not wrong. So it's a lot of money passing hands between FIBA officials, U.S. Olympic officials. U.S. Olympic officials are probably a little bit more um, stoic, in my opinion. But I mean, it makes everything look bad because I mean, depending on how where this goes, if you have FIBA with soccer, then you have the Olympics in Brazil coming up next year. It looks bad for everybody.
yeah, and that's why, if anything, this needs to be resolved quickly as possible. I mean, you definitely don't want to linger it out until for next year for the Olympics, because that's really what all the talk is going to still be about, is the corruption and the behind the scenes and not the actual games itself. So,
Yeah, it's going to get ugly. I think someone's going to fall on a sword and take the weight for it. But you're still going to have that cloud, looming. Well, you're going to have that cloud looming over the women's fever come next week, especially Olympics. Not so much. Maybe in the beginning when it first starts off, but once you get the game started and people start doing stuff, yeah, I don't think it's going to be a problem. But I don't know. I mean, this guy Sepp Battler said he's not stepping down as the president. Somebody's going to have to make him step down.
yeah, but it also, I mean, with the women, I'm wondering how it is going to be interesting to see how it affects them, because basically, they're going to be right in the middle of it regardless, and for them to be at a time where women's sports are where they are right now, it's just a bad. I kind of feel bad for women's soccer as a whole, because just at a time where they're trying to improve, not from a fan standpoint, just the quality, just to improve overall in women's soccer or women's sports in general. This is going to be a black eye in the middle of what they're trying to accomplish.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, puts a stain on the game to to a certain degree, but it's a stain on the women's. So I mean, you got to get this out of. It's not. I mean, it's. I don't think people understand how big FIFA is per se, because I mean, it's like we're in U.S. the United States, so we're pretty much basketball, football, baseball, hockey, and then that's pretty much it. I mean, they don't understand that soccer, FIFA soccer, outside of the U.S. is major. So this is serious. I mean, to the point when you had FBI and FBI in a European issue, pretty much per se, which means that somebody in the U.S. was taking some monies that hasn't leaked out yet. FBI wouldn't get not involved unless something within somebody within the U.S. was getting involved in this. So we could put that to the side because that's probably going to come out in a couple of days. But to have the Swiss people roll up in their house at 6 o'clock in the morning, snatch you guys out, put them in prison, that's some serious stuff.
No, that is. It is. And that's why I think, if anything, the importance of this is just going to be huge. Like you said, the folks in the U.S. is not really, don't see it as much because they don't, it's not as popular here in the U.S. as it would be in other countries. But the popularity of this is just makes this going to be, I mean, it's going to put it under a huge microscope. And everything that we're going to hear outside of, that involves fever, outside the U.S. is just going to be magnified like 10 times more than what we are hearing in the U.S.
Exactly. I don't know. We'll see. Over the next couple of days and weeks, I'm pretty more stuff will get unfolded. But we have to pretty much kind of take a wait and see approach at this point.
Yeah, definitely. But I definitely got to get, I'll definitely listen more about what's going on as far as the FIFA news is concerned. I didn't get a full aspect of it. I mean, I heard about the corruption charges. I heard about Loretta Lynch help leading that charge, but I didn't really get the full understanding until what you explained to me. So I definitely will be keeping more informed in what's going on with FIFA and the corruption charges outside of this. So
Yeah, so most of our listeners don't know that. I mean, you might think this is whatever a soccer, but trust me, this is serious. Especially if you have the FBI, which is basically investigates cases within the USA, assisting with Swiss and European authorities on this. This is this is serious.
no, like I said, I definitely gonna continue to monitor it. And I definitely want to hear more about what happens next because, like you said, this outside of the scope of the U.S., this is very serious for all other countries involved, and it'd be very interesting to see what happens.
Seriously.
Um, but getting back into the sports in the U.S. Today, I guess what's been going on. Adrian Peterson basically went on full blast on Twitter in regards to his contract status and the Minnesota Vikings as a whole. Basically, I guess a lot of people don't understand that he's skipping the OTAs, because, it's a business move, nothing personal. But I guess he's been going on a rant about, how his contract is and, just go from what I gather, it was a long rant. And I guess you could tell that the contract status with him is something that he's not too happy about, not too thrilled about at all. And there's the wedge there between Minnesota the Vikings and Adrian Peterson. So I guess the question is really what are they going to do? Um, I mean, there's been rumors, of course, about him going to, trading him to the Cowboys, or there's even talk about him probably retiring. So it's just a lot of speculation at this point. But I thought the whole Twitter rant was, you know, something I didn't expect from him at this point.
I didn't see the Twitter rant, and it might not be anything that's really from him per se. It could be from his camp, um, per se. I mean, the contract static is what it is. He signed a contract, I think back in 2012 or 2013.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got a pretty new contract. So I mean, even hmm. So the Vikings pretty much have the option. He either plays for the Vikings or he doesn't. and the Vikings have the option to trade him or not. The Vikings are probably not going to trade him per se unless they get a very good deal, and they're not going to look. They don't want to look weak and backing down to another player because that sets a bad precedent for all other teams in the league. So if he retires, he retires. If he resigns, if he comes back out of retirement, guess what? He's still under set contract from the Vikings, so they're still with the Vikings. So I mean, per se, it's almost like the Deion. I mean, I don't say Deion Sanders, but oh my God, I can't think of the dude's name from the running back from Detroit. But Barry Sanders. It was
Oh,
almost like the Barry Sanders when he had a contract dispute with Detroit and he signed that deal, and then like a year later he had a big deal. They weren't going to trade him. He had to play with him or not play with him, and he retired and he couldn't come back because if he came back, it'd have been back to Detroit, and Detroit can do whatever with him. So Agent Peterson is trying to, I think, in his way, get himself out of Detroit. And Detroit per se is not playing along with that. And if he retires, he retires. But if he unretires, he's still somewhat, depending on how the contract is written, still in the contract with the Detroit Lions. I mean, excuse me, still in the contract with the Vikings. We're going to come back with them.
mhm.
And I think this is all a ploy by his camp to kind of force the Vikings' hand to trade him.
Well, I mean, and I can understand that. If he's not happy, he's not happy. But at this particular point, like he said in the statement, this is business. So, like I understand both sides of the things, but I just, you know, it's not really the right way to go about doing things if you're complaining about something that you actually signed. But like I said, I understand. It's a business move, and if you're not happy, why not let other people do things for you to show that you're not happy? But hopefully down the road, they'll hope they work out to some type of agreement or some type of compromise, so that you know, because it looks bad when you're complaining about something, and it looks bad not just on the Vikings but on your part as well, because a lot of people's gonna say that's a contract that you signed, you need to honor it and stuff like that, yada yada yada. But hopefully they can come to a compromise and where they're both happy and both reach an agreement. So
I'm right there with you. I mean, it's. I mean, you hope things will work themselves out. I don't think he wants to play for the Vikings at all, and I think that's what basically kind of really boils down to. I think he's trying to force the Vikings hand to trade him, and he wants to go to the Cowboys. And if I'm the Vikings, I'm not trading him to anybody in the NFC division. Period. If he gets traded, he's going to be in the AFC unless the Cowboys are willing to give up everything for him. And with Jerry Jones, you never know.
and that is true. That is true. Uh, we'll see. I mean, that's all I can say. We'll see. I mean, this whole NFL offseason is just it's full of surprises. That's all I can say right now in that regard.
Say that the least.
um, so real quick, NBA Finals is now set. Of course, the Golden State Warriors just beat Houston last night, so they're in the finals going against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Not gonna say the person's name in the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm just gonna say the Cleveland Cavaliers. Um, what are your thoughts about last night's game?
Well, actually, I didn't even actually see. Well, I saw the first half of last night's game. So I thought the Houston Rockets would actually make it a game and make it push it to six. And I thought the Golden State was actually going to win on Houston Rockets floor, but apparently the Houston Rockets didn't do it. The game, I think the series was pretty much over the second that James Harden didn't get that shot off in game two, which, in my opinion, he shouldn't have even had the shot. I think that Dwight Howard was scared of that last shot because he had a wide open jumper right in front of him, but he sat there and gave the ball back to James Harden when he was double teamed by Splash Brothers. He passed it off to you. You give it right back to him when he was still double teamed by the Splash Brothers. Why in God's name would you do that? I don't. You had anyway. That game right there, I think, just ended it. And then when you got to game three, and he just didn't show up, and they got blew up by like 30 points. It was over then. It wasn't a question of when. If it was over, it's a question of what game.
No,
And
I agree with that.
and Dwight Howard, that's on the Houston Rockets now, does not even remotely resemble the Dwight Howard that was in Orlando, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, he's been injury prone and now, and so he's definitely, and he's older now, so he's definitely not the same person as he was in Orlando. I
I'm
think
not.
it, right.
I'm not talking about injuries. I'm talking about the heart. His heart is
Oh,
just gone.
yeah.
His, I mean, he had a lot. He had a lot more heart in Orlando. I mean, to me, that game too symbolized everything with Dwight Howard because you had, James Harden. They got the steal. He's come down. He gets trapped by, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. He passes the ball off to Dwight Howard, who was trailing. Now, Dwight Howard had two options: keep going and go for the dunk, and got fouled, which he probably would have, or keep going and stopped up and spotted up for the J. Now he doesn't have a mid-range J, so I would say go for the dunk. You would have got fouled, and you'd have got probably the benefit of the doubt for the foul because there was nobody within that perimeter of the paint that would have stood up there and probably would have got the charge. You'd have got the block. You'd have missed the dunk probably because you would have got it. Then you have two free throws. I believe he was scared to death to take that chance. So what does he does? He passes the ball right back to the man who was double teamed, and he still had the two defenders right next to him. And he expected James Harden to toss up something within 1.3 seconds, and he had no chance to do it. To me, that said everything about Dwight Howard that I need to know for the next couple of years.
Okay.
I just broke down those last couple of minutes from what I saw in that game. From what I saw a guy who wanted no parts of that last shot and get the ball right back to his man who passes to you because he was double teamed.
Okay. All right. I can understand that. But just to play devil's advocate. Now, if he would have went for the dunk or went for a shot and missed, everybody probably would have been saying he should have gave the ball up to James Harden.
And that's fine. And we can hash that all night long. But yet and still, he took the shot. He didn't even dribble. He didn't even make even a basketball move to even get someone to come and try to collapse on him. He just
Okay.
got the ball and passed it right back.
Hot potato. No, that is true. That is true. I agree with you about the game too. Once the end of game two was there, that's when you knew that where it stood. Now, granted, I did see the game last night, and just to be on the just to be on the safe side, um, Dwight actually played a good game. It was James Harden that that was an epic collapse for a person that was talking about people saying that he should have been MVP. That was a collapse. Like that should remove all doubt about people thinking that he was MVP.
He reminded me of James Harden that no showed against the Heat a couple of years ago when the Heat just beat the OKC and he was a no show.
Yes. No, I agree with that. I do agree with it. Now, granted, he has stepped up his game since then. Like to be honest, I think he's playing at a all-star, superstar level. It's just that he didn't show up the game when it needed him the most, which was, of course, last night's game. I mean, to have like 13 like 12 to 13 turnovers in that game by yourself, that is unacceptable. And I saw some of the turnovers, like it was all dribbling. Like he wasn't. It was like all majority of the turnovers were dribbling, losing the ball off his foot a couple of times, dribbling. Then at the last minute, passing, trying to force a pass to somebody. It was bad. I kind of felt bad for Harden. But all in all, it also shows that the defense of the Warriors, of course, and them being one of the best, actually the best defensive team in the league this season. So, uh, you know, it was the Warriors' time. That's pretty much how I could say it. It was for the Warriors to lose, and they didn't lose. They did what they needed to do. And I have to say this: after watching last night's game, I am more confident now that the Warriors is gonna. I really believe the Warriors. I'm not gonna say it. I just say that they have a great chance of winning the finals. Because the one thing that and in regards with the Cavs, like they of course they're the Eastern Conference Finals, of course. The favorites, I should say. They was the Eastern Conference champions. The thing that I was talking about was that the Cavs now their team was starting to step up. Other people other than LeBron was starting to step up. J.R. Smith, Tristan Thompson, um, those people really need to step up and for the people that wasn't there. And James needs that offense for other people to step up. And the team is starting to do that. Which made me wonder if that the Cavs would be the better team than the Warriors if I didn't see other people stepping up. But last night's game, to see Andre Iguodala step up, to see Harrison Barnes step up when Klay Thompson went down with that concussion.
Yeah.
I mean, like to see those people step up, Bogut anchoring the defense. It's similar to what Mozgov do with Cleveland. So I I don't understand why people are saying that the Cavs is going to win in five or fewer games. I would not be surprised if it goes to a 7 game series.
I hope it does. I mean, I think that for the Cavaliers, I mean, they got pretty lucky because I mean, all right, let's be deadly honest. We're here, right here. LeBron James was very shrewd about where he went. He didn't go to the West where it was a lot more competition. He stayed in the East where the competition was not that good. You had Chicago that had just bad luck. You had Indiana that was out of it once George was hurt back in the summertime. You had all right, your Nets have all kind of problems. The Heat wasn't that good. Atlanta Hawks was okay, but once they lost Kyle Korver, I think that just pretty much shot. That was any chance they had went when Kyle Korver went down. But they had a pretty much a lukewarm East to get through from the Cavaliers' perspective. There was no team that I saw in the East that was going to make them pay for not having Kevin Love and a healthy Kyrie Irving. I mean, Atlanta Hawks got lucky that Wall jacked up his wrist. If Wall wasn't hurt, Atlanta Hawks would not have been in that finals. It would have been the Wizards. Now, the Wizards probably wouldn't have won, but I think they would have given a better show than what the Hawks did. So now you had, LeBron James with, Cleveland Cavaliers, cats ensembles, get to the finals because the East was probably more weak this year than it has been in probably the last couple of years. And now you're going up against Golden State Warriors. Now, granted, you can say that Golden State probably got lucky because San Antonio, does what they normally do. They win a championship, but then they're like ghosts the next year. You had OKC that lost Kevin Durant, and they didn't make it. Now, in my opinion, if there was a team that could have made the Cleveland Cavaliers pay for not having Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love, it would have been OKC at full strength, but Kevin Durant got hurt. So Golden State, I don't know. I hope it's like at least a 6 or 7 game series. I really hope. I think the NBA really wanted out who was left in the finals, left in the playoffs, wanted Cavaliers and Golden State, and they got it. I just don't want it to be like a 4 or 5 game series.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I do. I definitely don't want it to be a 4 or 5 game series. I wanted to, like I said, I really wanted to go 7 games, because it, it's something that the NBA needs right now. Um, because truth be told, like I said, I'm not a Cavaliers person, to say the least. But they need competition, and they did not get it from the East at all. And I completely agree with you about the Washington Wizards because when I saw them play in the playoffs, I was like, that's a scary team. If anybody that would give anybody like Chicago or Cleveland a run would have been the Washington Wizards at full strength. And I said that, to be honest, I mean, if Pierce stays, I still give them the shot to be like the sleeper team. I mean, the whole John Wall injury, like that really just when
Shut them
that
down.
yeah, it shut them down completely. Um, and like I said before, you're right. I mean, Cavaliers pretty much just cakewalked themselves to the finals with the amount of injuries that happened. Um, Now, granted, they have injuries of their own, but you know, the injuries of the other teams was not a was definitely enough for them to say, you know what, I don't need Kyrie or Kevin Love at this particular time when I have the best player in the NBA to carry us to the finals. So now, what happens next is a different scope because you're playing a definitely a superior, better team than you was playing in the East. So it'll be interesting to see how things happen and put things progress. But I really hope it goes. I really hope it's a long series.
Yeah, and I think that the series is not going to really depend on you. Steph Curry's going to do what he's going to do, and Klay Thompson. Depending on how the injury is concussion, I think he's going to have like what 6 days to recover. I think he's going to be fine no matter what. I think you're going to have LeBron is going to do his thing. You're going to have Stephen Curry, and I think they might cancel each other out. Kyrie Irving is still kind of like a wild card, but then you have Klay Thompson, which might cancel that out. But my opinion, I think, is really going to be Andrew Bogut and what he can do um, down low against the Cavs front line. And if he can have a great series against the Cavs front line, I think that's gonna tell a lot against who's going to win a series.
So you think that Andrew Bogut is the X factor, the key?
Definitely, definitely, because I mean they're probably not going to. I mean, in my opinion, they're probably going to put LeBron James on Klay Thompson. They're not going to put him on Steph Curry because Steph Curry going to probably get him in foul trouble really quick. They're probably going to put him on Klay Thompson or probably the other guy from Cavaliers. I can't think of his name off the top of my head.
Iman,
No, they'll probably put LeBron should either go on Klay Thompson or the other guy that shoots the
J.R. Smith. You
from
said on
from
Cleveland.
goal. No,
Oh,
I said LeBron James will probably stick. If not, Klay Thompson. They'll probably
You
stick.
talking about Draymond Green?
Yeah, they'll probably either stick Klay Thompson or Draymond Green. They'll probably have either they probably won't put Kyrie Irving on Stephen Curry because Stephen Curry will probably blow past him. They'll probably put somebody else. But I don't think LeBron James is going to guard Steph Curry throughout the entire series majority of the time.
Yeah. Uh, you know who's gonna? All right. My X factor, since we talk about X factors, my X factor is actually gonna be Sean Livingston. Um,
Mm.
because the reason, even if Kyrie comes back, and I mean that's Sean Livingston is going to be the key. Between Sean Livingston and if I could add another X factor, it'd be Iguodala, because he can actually match up with LeBron from from a. It's kind of, to be honest, Golden State has the tools in place to guard LeBron. Um, Whether it's Draymond Green and his upper body, or if they need quickness, they could go to Iguodala. So it's going to be interesting how the defense plays out, but I really believe Sean Livingston from an offensive standpoint is going to be key. And if you put him in the mix, I could see him posting up any of the point guards all day. And whether he tries to score or whether he passes to somebody, he's going to create more offense for the Warriors. And I hope Cleveland is ready to counter that, and vice versa. I'm very interested to see how Game 1 starts off.
Yeah, I think that whoever wins game one will probably win the series.
I'll give you that. I agree with that. And to be honest, I'll put it like this, and I'm gonna say this again, um, because you know, not all really for the most part, LeBron is paying for his hometown, so you know that that's gonna be an extra motivation factor for him.
Hmm.
But the Warriors is gonna have to counter that and be ready for it, or at least be ready for it, and find a way to counter it. Because if they don't, and if once and when Kyrie comes back 100%, they're gonna attack.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I mean, I got an opportunity to watch the Golden State through the playoffs a lot more than I have throughout the entire, season, and I like them. I just have a necessary fear that their defense, in my opinion, doesn't lock down. I mean, you're going to let the Houston Rockets, who are not that good to begin with, drum up 100 plus, 100, games against you against the series. I mean, I don't think Cleveland's going to do that, but if you can't stop anybody on the Cleveland Cavaliers, if you're going to let Amon Shumpert, you're going to let J.R. Smith, who's streaky at best, and James Jones and all those other guys kill you, which, in my opinion, it's not LeBron James that kills you, it's the other guys that kills you.
No, I
And
agree with that.
if you're going to let those other guys kill you, then you might as well just pack it up.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And that's one of the things that I mean, to be honest, that should be their main objective. I mean, don't worry about LeBron so much, but just worry about the other players. And, vice versa, to be honest, with Cleveland. Like, don't worry about Steph Curry so much. If you can hold the other players that, defensively, then you've done your part. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. You got a whole week to wait for it to start anyway. So, by that time, everybody be ready for it and be ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, I'm interested to see not more so the players. I'm more interested to see more of the bench players to see who's going to step up, who's going to make, make the grade. I mean, because that's going to tell the tale. I mean, if I was Steve Kerr, I would try to do like a Michael Jordan approach because he played with Michael Jordan. Let LeBron James score all the points he wants. If LeBron just wants to go for 45. The more points that LeBron James scores and the less assists and rebounds that he has, you're winning the game.
That is true. That is true. That's true. And to be honest, it's crazy because who's better than someone that actually been a player for Michael Jordan to coach somebody that has similar aspects in LeBron James.
Yeah, I mean, you guys talk to Steve Kerr. Michael Jordan scored 63 points against the Celtics back in the playoffs eons ago, and they still lost because the Celtics sat on everybody else and let Michael Jordan go off.
Yep. 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 So, like I said, Steve Kerr, I think he'll figure it out. Like I said, I'm very interested to see how they react to this. Because right now, from a coaching standpoint, you definitely have to give him the edge over Black.
Yeah, I mean, I give him an edge. I'm still partial to my man Mark Jackson because, I mean, he got that whole team pretty much together. I mean, Steve Kerr and the management made a few tweaks. Who's not to say them few tweaks if Mark Jackson was still coaching, would it still been the same way or not? That's, debatable, but I still think that core and the whole team, you still got to get the Mark Jackson.
Yeah, I agree with that. And not only that, they're a young team. So just imagine they're gonna keep. I'm pretty sure they're gonna keep that team for years to come. Maybe change the bench a little bit, but for the majority of it, the core of the team is gonna be there for a while.
And one important thing, as long as they got Jerry West consulting them, they're gonna be straight. Because
Yeah,
Jerry West nixed the idea of trading Klay Thompson for Kevin Love, and that's paying dividends right now.
yeah, no, I agree with that. No, I completely forgot about that. I completely forgot about that love trade. No, but I agree with that. Kind of makes me wonder why. Yeah, but anyway, nah, because GMs are a dime a dozen, and you want a GM that's proven to have done the work. Like Jerry West, like he's a proven GM, and he's done a lot. If you have him in your organization, you can do no wrong. I mean, it's simple as that. And he's proven it time and time again with other teams. I forgot the other guy name, but the GM in Toronto, he completely revamped that team and made them an Eastern, Atlantic Division champs. I think 2 years in a row. Like those GMs is hard to find. Like if I'm an owner and one of those GMs was to be available, I would do my best to try and get them. But
Hey, look, all I gotta say is that the Lakers have not been the same since Jerry West left that organization.
of course, they have not been the same at all. Like, and that's what kills it. Like, so many times, so many coaches are, owners. They are just because they have a bad relationship with their coaches, they figure they could find someone better. I mean, come on, who is like you have one of the best defensive coaches in the NBA today. How is Chicago firing Tom Thibodeau? Um, I don't understand how the Bulls would fire their coach today after
I
you know
I I that escapes me because I mean, Tom Thibodeau got fired because of, in my opinion, Jalen Rose's injuries, and he had nothing to do with Jalen Rose getting injured. Now he might have had a play in how the time frame that he came back, but the first injury that Jalen Rose got, he sat out the entire season and the playoffs. He came back and got re-injured again. I mean, you can't, if you can't, predict that.
I just I don't understand. Just like the whole thing with Mark Jackson, because he had riff with the ownership, they fired him. But these coaches are proven time and time again that they're winning coaches. Like I guess that's what was so like I don't understand. Like if I'm an owner, I don't really care if I have a good or bad relationship with a coach. As long as he providing me wins and they're taking a step in the right direction, or if something was to happen and it wasn't their fault, I'm not gonna hold that against them.
Yeah, I'm Tom Thibodeau. I'm the coach. I'm not the GM. I mean, like I'm coaching who you gave me. If my top player, Jalen Rose, pretty much,
You mean Derrick
unless
Rose?
Derrick Rose. Let me say Jalen Rose. Whew.
Yeah.
But I mean, my top player, Derrick Rose, was an MVP. If he was basically injured and was out for literally 2 years, which I mean, let's be honest, he's basically gone for 2 years, and you don't give me anybody in essence to replace that, what do you want him to do?
I I
And then you
I,
and then you fire him over top of all of that, which to me is insane.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know. You know, from I think what it is that owners are getting too personal in their business. I mean, and granted, it is their business. Don't get me wrong, but if you know that your business is doing well, why would you fire the person that's helping the, you know, is the cause of that? I guess that's what I don't get with ownership nowadays. But then again, I'm not an owner, so I can't really, you know, I guess I can't relate to that. But I just find it fascinating from the outside looking in, like, what is the issue?
But then again, it's the Jerrys over there in Chicago. So I mean, they dismantled the whole Chicago, dynasty when Jordan was there. This doesn't really surprise me with those guys.
That's true. That's true. Um, I'm just interested to see what happens with them next. Um, since their whole idea is thinking about bringing in the Fred Holberg from Iowa State.
Are you serious? You're gonna bring an Iowa State coach?
Yeah, I know that's what they're leaning towards. They love him.
But the problem is it's not a coach-driven league like how it is in college. It's a players-driven league in the NBA, and if the players don't like this guy, whoever you bring in is going to be out on the first thing smoking. So I mean, I mean, there's only maybe two or three college coaches that could probably go to the NBA and still keep that college status, but outside of that, no.
Well, I mean, you have to understand. I guess with all these rookie coaches that are in place now, um, I guess that's where the trend is now for a lot of NBA teams out there. I mean, like I said, you got two rookie coaches that's coaching in the finals for the first time ever. Um, you had Brad Stevenson and the Celtics who did actually pretty well with the team they had. So it's definitely something that I guess is a trend. Um, we'll see how far this trend goes, but it definitely is a trendsetter right now.
Yeah, like I said, we all have to kind of wait back and see how things roll, and it is what it is.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, looking at the time, we definitely went over the time limit of what I was thinking about doing, but you know how we usually talk when we get together. So for everybody out there, I'd like to say thank you for subscribing, thank you for listening, tuning in to us. Um, Before we go, Earl, if you want to plug anything about where people can reach you, you know.
I mean, you just hit me up on Twitter, JE Ross, the number seven. Hit me on Instagram, same thing, Facebook. I'm right out there. I don't blog pretty much, but I'm going to start blogging a little bit more. And be on the lookout for some apps coming from me and Al that he doesn't know about just quite yet, but be on the lookout for that stuff.
Yeah, you're right. I do not know nothing about that. No, but it's all good. For everybody else, of course, you can see my handle. I am Al Qualls on Twitter. You can catch me on Google Plus as well with the same name. You can also subscribe on the lower right hand side of the screen. That for those that's on YouTube, really would appreciate it. I'm also on Facebook, on Instagram every now and then. But for everybody else, hit me up with comments, questions. Tell me what things that you like or don't like about the show. We could definitely work together to help improve the show overall. For everybody, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to us talk as we normally do, talk about sports. You catch us usually on every every Thursday night around this time, and we'll make some changes. We'll let you know if there's any changes in place. But for now, this is Guys Talking Sports. And for everybody else that's out there, appreciate the time for looking. Take care.
One.